So how did you get hooked on that? Did you play tennis first, or did pickleball just come as the...
Yeah, I grew up playing tennis. My dad, in his many travels, was a club tennis pro in that era of Jimmy Connors and Yvonne Lendl and the wooden rackets, which he would come out, and when we'd get arrogant when we were kids, he would pull the wooden racket and beat us at tennis with the wooden racket. So yeah, I grew up playing tennis, but back then you couldn't.
I was a freshman the same year with Ralph Sampson and James Worthy. So I like to say that I came in third in ACC Rookie of the Year voting. That's because Ralph and James got all the other votes, and there was nobody else. My daughter tells a really good story. She says, my daddy was a 20-20 man at Wake Forest. Sounds pretty good, you're thinking 20 points, 25th, whatever. Really what it meant was if we were up by 20 or down by 20, I got in the game.
Welcome to the Blue Collar Tennis RVA podcast, dedicated to amateur tennis players and RVA who are looking to improve their game, find community, and nerd out on all things tennis. Produced and recorded by Richmond Podcast Studio.
Hi, everybody. Back again with Blue Collar Tennis RVA, and we have a very special guest today. Jon Laaser is with us. You guys are probably familiar with the background. It's extensive relative to Jon's work with not only VCU locally, but Virginia Tech, the Flying Squirrels locally, a bunch of other baseball teams and so on throughout the country. And now Jon is actually active in the pickleball world. So we appreciate Jon coming in today. Thanks for your time today, Jon. Appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. Thanks for the invite.
No worries. I wanted to start out just basically standard the way I typically do, and just based on your history, there's a lot to talk about within your resume, but I wanted to just find out where you're from originally and how you got into the sports casting, and then how you ended up in Richmond, Virginia.
Yeah, I think like a lot of people, it's a winding road, but I'm a Midwestern kid, originally from just outside of Chicago, but my dad was a pastor, so moved around a bit, congregation to congregation, and long story short, wound up growing up just outside of Minneapolis and loved sports. That was our connector when I was a kid and continues to be, even though he's passed. But I like to say I was an all-star at 11 and a has-been at 13. Like so many people, when the dream died of playing collegiate athletics or anything beyond that, you went through a phase where life became about other things, but then ultimately, how can I be connected to sports? And that took for me to Arizona State, where I went to school, kind of, and did more figuring out what I didn't want to do in life than what I did want to do, and moved back to Minneapolis and wound up going to what was at the time Brown Institute of the Air. It's now Brown College, but it was something that doesn't really exist anymore. It was a radio-specific educational program, more of a trade school type environment, and that was an entree for me. I was able to get an internship at KFAN, which was a fledgling sports radio station. This was the boom of sports radio, the golden age, kind of coming off that Mike and Mike and Mad Dog and those things in New York. Dan and Mike and Mike were just getting going. But anyway, really opened my eyes to the creative side of things. And I wound up being at KFAN for multiple years, which led into baseball, which ultimately led here to Richmond many stops later.
Yeah, I noticed. So you went from Chicago to Arizona State, right?
Minneapolis to Arizona State.
Minneapolis to Arizona State. And then you were working up in the Pacific Northwest, right? For Yakima baseball team, right?
Yeah, they always say you've never really made it until you've worked for at least 3 defunct teams. I've got 3 of those now, so Yakima being one of them.
Oh, that's
they're the Hillsboro Hops. But yeah, while I was at KFAN, it was what do you want to do? You wind up in this room full of creative geniuses, I would call them, that were doing a lot of talk. And I realized that though I liked that medium, it's not something I really wanted to do every day. I was a play-by-play guy. That was my ambition. And in play-by-play, I was in a major market, and it's not like the Vikings were going to call and hire you, or the Twins right out of the box as a 21, 22-year-old, whatever the case was at the time. And also back then, maybe they still do, I don't know, but games were paid by the game, and baseball was really the only one where there were enough games to not really support yourself, but at least have beer money. And So I got great advice from Paul Allen, who I was interning for. He's the voice of the Vikings now, was at the time, had just gotten the job. He said, you got to go out and do the work. And, you're a big city guy, again, Chicago, Minneapolis, whatever the case may be, but you need to get out there and do it. And my first job, I was fortunate enough to do play-by-play in a summer collegiate league, which was the Northwoods League in, this is defunct team number 1, by the way, St. Cloud Riverbats. But it was kind of like the Cape Cod League, but it mimicked the travel. You were in one city for a couple days, and then you're on the bus with the guys. And these were all bright-eyed college athletes that were looking to showcase for the draft. So it was the most fun I've ever had. And, okay, I'm going to do this. And like you said, did that for a couple of years, did a year with the St. Paul Saints, which went from bright-eyed collegiate kids to on the way out pros and independent ball. So saw the innocence and then the aftermath, I would say, of baseball, but then got into affiliated ball in Yakima, which was an Arizona Diamondbacks affiliate, was the first time really I moved across the country for the profession.
Wow. So is it really like traveling with the team? Is it really like Major League and that is it that extreme, or is it?
Yeah, I like to say I caught the golden age of that too. I was really fortunate, We've seen a transition in this industry, certain as we sit in this awesome podcast studio and you can create this type of content. Back then it was a radio hub or not. And in baseball, it's you're on the bus and smartphones didn't exist. I know that's hard for people to understand, but we played cards. And, if the team played well, the manager would stop and we'd get cases of beer. And it was just an awesome time. We didn't know what we didn't know, right? And get to the ballpark and do your job. And that was your greatest stress. So it's many of my greatest memories in life are on those buses. And I found that success came for me in the fact that I always considered myself a pretty normal guy, right? Like I grew up playing sports. I wasn't some stats geek that just wanted to play a Stratomatic, and nothing wrong with that. But
love that game.
The guys were kind of conditioned to not trust the broadcaster. What are they going to say? My family's listening. There wasn't a whole lot of other people. And it always took a while into the season for them to be like, oh, the broadcaster just kind of wants to come out with it. Maybe he's lonely. He's out on the road by himself. And so I'd always wind up with whoever's on the team being friends by the end of the year. But and at those times, I was the same age as the guys. So it was just as soon as you could recognize within yourself that you were the least attractive, least physically gifted person on the bus and use your humor as a self-defense mechanism, which I did pretty quickly. It all gelled together.
That's classic. That's classic. Self-deprecating.
It's always carry that onto the air too was a perfect.
Outstanding. So that translates eventually into working for the Flying Squirrels here in Richmond, right? Doing play-by-play.
Yeah, it's kind of that 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon type aspect. I went from Yakima and, everyone would go to the baseball winter meetings back then, another event that they've kind of destroyed with trying to make it perfect over the years. But back then it was just a cattle call. It was a job fair. And in broadcasting, there weren't too many opportunities. And I went to the winter meetings. I got the Yakima job at the winter meetings in Dallas at one of the bigger events that they had. And then the next year was in Orlando. And I got the number 2 job in Altoona, Pennsylvania, which was the Pirates AA affiliate. So it was a big jump from short season rookie to AA, but I wasn't the main guy. Fortunately, I got that job with a great friend of mine now. He was in on my wedding, Jason Dombach. But more importantly, it was run by Parney Altoona at the time. Yeah. And they, loved Parney immediately. We were kindred spirits, although we had a little bit of an age gap. And again, fast forward a bit, he was in my wedding years later. But Altoona was owned by a man named Chuck Greenberg, who people around here probably don't know, but he was the one that saved the Penguins from leaving Pittsburgh and had aspirations in ownership. So he owned Altoona, the State College Spikes, which was another Pirates affiliate, and then Myrtle Beach, the Pelicans, they had bought as a prospect team that they didn't feel was living up to its potential, and it was a Braves affiliate. So they owned all three. Anyway, after the season in Altoona, it seemed like they liked what I had done, and I was getting along with them, but I didn't want to live in Altoona, Pennsylvania. So I went back to Minneapolis, and a week later I got a call from Parney, and he's like, we need you in Myrtle Beach. We need you there in a week. So I went down there, did the 2008 season in the Braves organization, wound up getting the call up to AA in the Rays organization in Montgomery. So I left that ownership group, which turned out to be fortuitous because that was when the ownership group for the Squirrels was being founded. And essentially they pulled in Chuck Domino, Parney, and Bill Papierniak, who were all leaders in minor league baseball, and said, put an all-star team on the field. And I was fortunate enough to be picked for that. So moved literally 2 blocks from this studio back in October of 2009 to Richmond. I've been in Virginia ever since.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Wow. What a crazy path.
It was 7 teams in 7 years leading to the Squirrels. And then I remember we were sitting down at Havana 59, Parney and I having beers, and he said, hey, man, I know we're all striving for the big leagues and whatever else. And he goes, but this seems like a pretty damn good place to wait. And that's essentially what we did.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, there's been progression, obviously. What do you think of the new ballpark down there?
Well, I love it more for the people than I do for the structure. It's an amazing structure, but being there at the beginning, and I remember the Baseball is Back press conference on the steps of the Diamond with Mayor Jones and Lou DiBella, and this was before all of the wrangling and whatever, and we thought we were going to be in the Diamond for 2 years, and then in year 3, as was promised, and I don't need to get into the politics of all that, we would be in a new ballpark. Well, I wound up being there 5.5 seasons left for Tech in the middle of the 6th, and we were nowhere there. We'd had 3 press conferences and groundbreaking ceremonies, and I became a shovel in the ground guy very quickly. Show me some dirt moving, and I'll believe we're going to be in a new ballpark. And in the meantime, we'll just do the best job we can here. And it didn't affect me personally all that much because the booth was the booth, and I could still achieve my ambition from there. But for the people around me that were really trying to make it work from a partnership standpoint in this community, it got very frustrating. So it's gratifying that Ben Rothrock, who was with me in Altoona, I should say I was with him in Altoona. He had been with Parney longer than me. Anthony Opperman, who was my original broadcast partner with the Squirrels. Those two are essentially the leadership pillars of Richmond. To see Parney able to kind of quasi step away, although he's never really away, as we know. But to see them take it to the finish line and do it in a way that they have is really gratifying. That's why I always tell Oppo, as I call him, Anthony Opperman again, I say, you saw it all the way through. And he's on his 3rd, I believe, maybe 4th stint with the Squirrels where he left, came back, because that pull of bringing that to Richmond was one of the biggest reasons why we all came here in the first place.
Yeah, as you said, the politics will stall anything that gets involved with.
I think the hardest thing was I understood. Every time I understood. Like when we were going to build one right here. For people that don't know, we're basically at 19th and Broad, right? I did a press conference with Mayor Jones right behind that Exxon station. I don't even know if the gas station's still Exxon, but it was at the time. Seemed like a great idea, right? Until all this, things come out about parking and the history, and it's just like, well, this thing's dead in the water. And then we never really got all that close again, despite the news clippings.
So you go from there to Virginia Tech, right, as voice of the Hokies, covering everything. You were covering football, baseball. Did you do basketball too? You did all
I was the voice of basketball, but one very big thing happened in between those two, and that's when we came in to found the Squirrels. It was, people don't remember, a hair on fire startup where we had to build everything from the ground up. And for me, that meant the entire press box and who's going to be the official scorer, who's going to be, the person that comes on the mic and goes, hit, air, whatever the case may be. We needed all of that. We needed a scoreboard operator. And we didn't have any time to do it. So I was fortunate enough to meet Scott Day, who at the time was the director of media for VCU basketball. And I said, can you have lunch with me? I figured he knew some of the people in town that were kind of that age that were looking for those jobs. And I said, I don't have any time, man. Like, whoever you've got, just that's our staff. So he hired the whole press box for me. They were in the summer in between season. Got to know all the people from VCU. And of course, Shaka caught lightning in the bottle in 2011 Final Four run. But before that, at the end of the baseball season, Scott Day had said, hey, we need a women's basketball announcer. And I'm like, sure, man, extra money, let's do it. And it wound up being awesome. It was a great team. At the time, Coach Marlene Stallings, I know people have their thoughts on her in the aftermath, but I loved her. She was fantastic. I really enjoyed traveling with those ladies. It got me back into basketball and football play-by-play. Not football at the time, but basketball play-by-play. Other things outside of baseball, which I had been kind of wrapped up in for almost a decade at that point. And then when 2011 happens, the next year, all of a sudden the Rams are it, and they've got to be on TV, and they want all their non-conference games televised, but it's outside of their conference agreement with the networks, and I was the only play-by-play guy in town. And I got those jobs. Robbie Robinson, great friend, hired me to do that. And suddenly there I am on Masson and NBC Sports Washington. And that's what allowed me to get the Tech game, was those opportunities. So it was definitely a one thing led to another thing, led to another thing. Holy hell, we're in Blacksburg.
Yeah, so you go from Shaka to Frank Beamer.
That's right, yeah.
Right, and then they had some obvious changes out there eventually. And then so you end up back in Richmond after how many years at Tech?
So I was at Tech for 7. To your point, Tom, I caught Coach Beamer's last season, was my first season, and then the entire Justin Fuente era. But then on the basketball side, it was really the ethos of basketball at Tech under Buzz Williams, the Sweet 16 run, buzzer-beating loss to Duke in 18-19. Then he leaves, Mike Young comes in. So a lot of things happening, and then the pandemic came in, and just nothing was really ever the same in the athletic department after that. Don't need to necessarily get into that, but yeah, we came back to Richmond in the spring of 2022.
And so pickleball, I saw that you admit that you're a pickleball addict. So even though we're a tennis podcast, we're going to entertain pickleball because I'm a member at ACAC and we have a lot of people that play, as you can imagine, play pickleball. So how did you get hooked on that? Did you play tennis first, or did pickleball just come as the?
Yeah, I grew up playing tennis. My dad, in his many travels, was a club tennis pro in that era of Jimmy Connors and Yvonne Lendl and the wooden rackets, which he would come out, and when we'd get arrogant when we were kids, he would pull the wooden racket and beat us at tennis with the wooden racket. So yeah, I grew up playing tennis, but back then you couldn't play everything at once. It was all high school sponsored. It wasn't like it is now, and you had to essentially pick. Tennis was a spring sport in Minnesota. And I hadn't grown yet. I was 5'4". I'm 6'1" now, and it happened after I picked. But anyway, it was between tennis, baseball, and golf, and I happened to be the best at golf, so I chose golf. My brother would later choose tennis and become one of the better players in the state, but didn't wind up being as tall as I was. And so anyway, I'd always loved racket sports. Ping pong was a passion of mine in basements growing up and whatever else. And so I had never heard of pickleball. But when I came back to Richmond, one of the former Flying Squirrels pitchers who had been my roommate at one point in the wild days had married a woman from Short Pump, and they had settled down despite the fact that he's from L.A., in the West End. And when we got back, he invited me to brunch, and he's like, let's go play pickleball first. And I'm like, what is pickleball? I'm like, whatever, sounds like a way to a mimosa. And walked out to the park, and I'm like, wow, that's all things I like. So
that's neat. So now you're the CEO, Chief Operating Officer of Performance Pickleball, right, at Regency. And I was in there the other day, and it's an amazing facility. Very cool. How many members do you guys have at this point?
Yeah, so we're at 650 members, and we've actually been on a wait list for the last couple of years. The facility is so multifaceted in terms of, we need member traffic, to your point, but we also need non-member play and corporate events and tournaments and leagues and all that different stuff. So that's been like everything in pickleball. It's a learn through experimentation process. So we've been working on that number, where to cap it, different levels to cap it. But the interest is certainly sky high. In terms of that facility, it's really the only game in town indoors, despite the fact that Richmond has a phenomenal park system of outdoor courts and a couple here and there indoor options, but nothing like we have.
So you have a full service facility there. You offer food and drink and coaching and everything, right? So it's similar to any tennis club in Richmond for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, what happened was when we got into it, and I got into it through starting our nonprofit, Laaser's Ladybug Society, and we were fundraising for mental health initiatives in public schools. And my wife and I, really the only way we knew how to do that was through athletic events. So again, I'll save everybody the long version, but we threw a pickleball tournament, put in some of the player-friendly things that we would become known for, dry fit shirts and water bottles, and brought in mainstream sponsors and a lot of the connections I had from Tech and the Squirrels and just the community as a whole. And then partnered with Lee Warfield, who's the president and at the time CEO of Tallheimer, They were working on a project in Regency, but weren't anywhere far along. And so he and I got together, and we were quickly kindred spirits. There was never an adult in the room telling us not to spend money, so we wound up with the Cadillac of everything. But what our venture was there was two types of things. In tennis is the same way. Not so much on the entertainment side, but pickleball was becoming this, where a facility was either straight competition, like you see in tennis clubs, maybe some minor food and beverage, snack bar, maybe beer and wine at the highest. But otherwise, you're there to play tennis. That's your workout, your competition, whatever the case may be. Nothing wrong with that. And then there's the other model, which mimics Topgolf and River City Roll. Rob's done a great job. Rob Long, his dad's actually a member of Performance with that, where the sporting activity is really just a vehicle to the food and beverage revenue.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what minor league baseball is also. Parney's very fond of that. We're not in the baseball business. We're in the memory-making business. So anyway, we hazarded to say, what would happen if we tried to do both sides well, where we were the competition epicenter of the Mid-Atlantic for tournaments and leagues and all these other things that have grown from that, but also ran a full-scale food and beverage and catering opportunity for all the companies like Capital One and CarMax in town.
Yep.
And the result of that is we essentially have three businesses under one roof. We have those two, the pickleball kind of athletic club model. We have the full restaurant and bar, and then we also have the pro shop, which has jetted up to this huge thing. How you run all that, I still don't know. We're figuring it out. But what's fun and also frustrating at times about it is one side will be rolling, right? Like pickleball is rolling immediately. The urgency for the membership was there right out of the gate, but every restaurant operator or bar operator will tell you, you have to market, you have to be active in terms of what you're doing. Like we're doing Western themed bingo tomorrow night, and I'll be the announcer. And people, you're going to announce that after everything? I'm like, heck yeah, like it's a role of a lifetime. But it is because we need the traffic and we need the sales. Yeah. So, it's been a lot of fun. Those two things have worked, but it's a lot more complex than people see, I think.
Yeah, and not to get into any kind of negativity, but
I'll go there.
Yeah. So as the competition, as you mentioned, so you got the bowling alleys aren't just bowling alleys anymore. Mm-hmm. They're all doing the same thing, right? So they're all trying to bring in everybody and anybody for entertainment, let alone bowling. And as you said, the Squirrels are in the same boat. So you compete against a lot of different entities. But I think in your case, you have kind of a captive audience to some extent because you got that huge apartment complex right there.
Yep.
And then right at Regency, do you mind if I ask whether you own the property or are you leasing it?
We essentially lease from ourselves. We lease, but Lee, again, my business partner, is one of the owners of the mall.
Okay. Oh, okay. So, yeah, I remember. So I saw something about Topgolf with their, the footprint that they have is so expansive and the cost of building one of those is monumental. I was looking at your situation and I think it makes a lot more sense to do things exactly the way you've done it, to not have that huge overhead, hanging over the business. I think it's like $20 million at a minimum to build one of those Topgolf facilities.
Like I said, there was a lot of different ideologies at the time in terms of, can you just take a warehouse, put some courts down and play? And we've seen that be successful with some other franchises. That's essentially what Dill Dinkers does. I don't mean to diminish, they do a lot of great programming and things like that, but there's no food and beverage, and they don't do a whole lot of reshaping of the buildings they go into. We gutted it, which was Macy's, and then step by step built it into what we wanted. So our build out actually was probably a lot higher than it needed to be in terms of just being functional. But in terms of what our vision was, it worked out really well. Great group of contractors. Josh Perkins was our general contractor with Cross Creek, and met so many wonderful subs, as they call them, subcontractors, through that have become partners of ours. And yeah, it was really a labor of love. I know that's cliche to say in terms of like, we're going to use this tile here and we're going to test this court surface. And some of the stories we have, which we documented pretty well video-wise, are pretty comical in terms of how we came to those decisions. Because again, there wasn't really a roadmap of how to do it. It was, we're going to take kind of what we like from this facility that just started up a year ago, and we don't think we like that, and we're going to scrap that and come to all of those with the concepts, like you say, from Topgolf, Drive Shack, River City Roll, Chicken and Pickle is kind of that same concept within pickleball. And one of the advantages that we have over them is that we have that built-in competitive side, which funnels our cash churn at the beginning through our membership rates, so we don't have to charge what I say. I don't mean to disparage Topgolf. The market allows you to charge what you can, but to charge Topgolf prices for drinks and food, which are much more than if you just go to your neighborhood restaurant. Same on the corporate event side. And we're not necessarily intentionally trying to undercut them. It's just what we need to charge is a little bit different. And also having the knowledge in the space that we've been the curiosity thing for a lot of companies. We've done Topgolf, or a Christmas party was here the last couple of years. Let's try pickleball. So we've had the benefit of that the last couple of years. And how do we now actually compete with them for that discretionary income now that we're not necessarily the hot button thing?
Yeah, and the membership helps, obviously, having that stable
it's a security
revenue.
blanket. For sure.
Yeah, exactly. And you're looking to, it's a good thing to have to say we have to cap our membership.
Right.
And then to have a waiting list, that's even a better thing.
And sometimes even our membership doesn't understand necessarily why we do that. There's a variety of reasons for that. One of which is we don't want to diminish the member experience, which you see at a lot of country clubs for golf, right? And this is great. I'm a member, but I can't get a tee time at my own club.
Great point.
Same thing in tennis or pickleball. Like, it's awesome. I'm a member at Salisbury, let's say, but I can't get a court time. So we didn't want to do that. We have different levels of membership. There's, of course, a variety of skill levels and ages and what people are looking for in their play patterns. So trying to mold our membership, I always say people get caught up in the overall number of members, and it's not necessarily that number. It's how many you have at different, how many morning team members do we have, which is unlimited. Weekday mornings is for the retirees and flex schedulers. How many unlimiteds do you have, and all those things. But then ultimately, how much revenue or how much inventory, which is our court time, do you have left to sell to CarMax or Capital One without upsetting the members? How many times can you bring in a national tournament and shut down for a weekend on your members? Will they understand the cost of doing business, which is the overhead? So there's just a ton of different things that go into that number. But to your original point, it's great to be on a waiting list because it allows me to do what I want to do. In terms of changes, which will always in any industry and any walk of life come with dissenters. And we have the luxury of saying, we get that you don't like it. Here is Steve. He's behind you on the waiting list. Feel free to leave. It's not a prison colony. And I don't mean that to be mean, but that's what it comes down to in terms of having that ability. And then if they leave, they go to the back of the waiting list and probably won't be able to get back in. So it's kind of our hammer, for lack of a better term, right now.
I find it interesting, the national tournaments you mentioned. Do you guys do you post a schedule for that kind of stuff when when those are coming to Richmond and so on?
Yeah, for sure. And that's how we got into it, was being tournament operators, which was kind of the origin for competitive pickleball. How do you get a rating? You had to play in these 3-day events, which would be singles on Friday and then doubles over the weekend. And we became a player in that space, moved all those, of course, inside. We have a second facility in Roanoke, so we bounce back and forth. We have our Atlantic Union Bank tournament series, which is modeled after the FedEx Cup on the PGA Tour. But then somewhere along the way, my broadcasting background bled into an emerging collegiate pickleball scene, which is run by Duper, which is the universal rating system now for pickleball. And again, that was a war. Who's going to become the rating system? Well, Duper won, but they also formed this collegiate tour, which has mushroomed into national tournaments with 300 teams and 100 schools from across the country and national championships. And I've called that the last 4 years. Then we built a production company, because one of the things that was becoming prevalent in competitive pickleball was, hey, everyone wants to see it. They want live streaming, want to be able to post it on Gram and TikTok and whatever. But that was really expensive. And we front-ended the investment for all of the equipment. We fortunately had the expertise on our staff to do it in-house and build that. So we got the national rights to all the college stuff. Then that led to partnerships with the professional stuff. And now we're bringing in a national pro tournament in November. So again, it's kind of like a broadcasting career where everyone's like, how'd you get here? What was your path? I talk to young people. I'm like, I don't even remember. I don't, just kind of happened.
Back at your resume.
People hate that, right? But that's kind of how pickleball is. It's just like, we just locked in that national tournament like 5 days ago, and that's the meeting I got to run to after this, is like with RRT and hotel blocks, and it's kind of crazy right now.
That's awesome. Well, I don't want to keep you. I'd like to maybe shift gears for just a minute. You mentioned in passing that you and your wife do a foundation relative to, can you detail what that's all about real quick?
Yeah, so when I left Tech, one of the reasons was that, not to get into the politics of college athletics and all those different things, but it really wasn't, it didn't feel fulfilling to me anymore at the time in terms of, I got into sports because I love competition, obviously, and then broadcasting because it's still competitive, but also just the pure joy of being at the game, calling exciting moments. It had become a long way from that, and it was affecting my mental health negatively, where the things I used to really enjoy were just kind of feeding into my own depression and anxiety. And my wife was flexible enough, fortunate. I said, listen, like, this is going to be major. It's going to be news, but I'm not happy. And my parents, I mentioned my dad was a pastor, but also we're in the counseling space, psychological addiction therapy space, and had become pretty globally known for it. And I just felt like I wasn't making an impact like they were. So long discussions about where we wanted to live. Was it going to be Virginia? Where were we going to go? She's from Philly, back to the Midwest. It was kind of a blank slate at the time. But one thing we knew was that we wanted to continue one of the initiatives we had started in Blacksburg, which was the Clean Mountain Air Initiative. And we were doing just T-shirt drives basically to fund sports psychology for the student athletes at Tech. Could we do that younger, get to the kids before the symptoms started showing off these things? And so anyway, we partnered with Hanover County schools and started fundraising and directly donating money to those causes and kind of earmarking it for mental health. And really got some good traction going with that. Got a little bit frustrated just because of our background, being more at the higher level, being able to do more pretty quickly without having to build it completely grassroots. And so Performance came along and offered an opportunity to have a bigger stage while still supporting that cause. So we continue to do that through, the Ladybug Classic, which was our first ever event.
Nice.
And they all kind of run together. And Lee has given us the opportunity to do that too. So.
And that's Ladybug. There's a
Lasers Ladybug Society.
Yes.
LasersLadybugSociety.org. But you can get there. It's easier through the Performance website too.
Oh, okay.
It's easier to spell.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, we had a guest on here who had played a lot of tennis. She was progressing, Rachel, and she blew out her knee.
Yeah.
And she ended up having to go through the surgery and the therapy and everything. And she actually sat here and said she had lost her identity because her tennis had become her, her passion and her hobby. And then she's out for roughly 9 months, and she's like, I don't know what to do with myself at this point. So the psychology plays a huge role in even amateur athletics. So, and pickleball is not immune to the injury bug.
No, it's not. We're Ortho Virginia is our biggest sponsor. We hand deliver them customers or patients every day.
Oh, that's hilarious. Well, Jon, I appreciate it. So in your final words, would you, and I may have to change this to blue collar tennis and pickleball eventually, but in your final words, positive things to say about both tennis and pickleball, how would you frame
Well, I
it?
think there's a lot of similarities between the two in terms of the social camaraderie. Pickleball is much heavier on the doubles side, whereas tennis is obviously much heavier on the singles side. But the spirit remains. And what we've seen, I always say pickleball is a phenomenon and there's no comparison. And while that's true in terms of the pure numbers, if we look back into history, definitely mimicking some things and some transitional times. Skiing and snowboarding comes to mind in terms of can't be one if you're the other. Well, that's not true with tennis and pickleball. We saw at first it was a lot of people, like you said, that had knee injuries or they just couldn't run like they used to tennis-wise to play singles. It's not that they didn't love the game anymore, but it offered them kind of a longer leash in terms of how long they could play and still be out there. And, the skills, although the strategy doesn't X to X translate, the skills do. The hand-eye coordination and the paddle or racket skills. If you're a good tennis player, you can pick up pickleball a lot faster than if you didn't play tennis. But then the same, let's go get a nice tea after the match or let's get lunch. The club aspect of it is definitely there. So we saw a lot of converts from tennis just, hey, now I don't play tennis anymore at the beginning. Now I'm pickleball. It's like, all right, cool. That's great. We'll have you. But now we're seeing a lot of people that still do both, which is cool. It's like I play pickleball on Tuesdays and I play tennis on Thursdays or whatever the case may be. And that's allowed both to be to be present in that, but tennis probably wouldn't want to admit this because it's the older sport and more the institution. But pickleball is helping tennis right now. It's helping people. Like in our facility, like I said, with hundreds and hundreds of members. Started out with a tennis mindset. We've had Wimbledon on the last couple of weeks, and they gather around the bar and they're caring about this next generation of tennis players. Yeah. So, from someone who grew up on breakfast at Wimbledon and all of those different things, really felt a letdown from the professional tennis in terms of the entertainment factor, and it kind of rises 3 or 4 times a year, but that's essentially it. And I feel like this is giving a window back for people that didn't necessarily experience that, that are younger than me, letting them back into tennis, and as we like to say, space for everyone. So
outstanding. Well, Jon, I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Absolutely.
Excellent conversation. I'd like to have you back at some point so we can talk again about maybe some other additional things and get into more detail. Thanks again for coming by, and appreciate your time today.
Absolutely, Tom. Thanks again for the invite.
All right. Thank you. Hi again, everybody. Here we are back at Blue Collar Tennis RVA, and we have a very special guest. We've been reminiscing here between takes, but I think you guys, when you see him, you'll probably recognize him. Brad Williamson, welcome.
Thanks, Tom. Good to be here.
Yeah, appreciate you taking the time to come down and talk with us. And I'll be honest, this conversation could go very quickly down a rat hole, so we'll try to keep it under control. But we've played against each other a bunch of times. We've had some very unique experiences on and off the tennis court. So I wanted to bring you in and not only talk tennis, but also, as usual, we start with an origin story. So I'd like to understand where you were born and raised, and then how you got into, tennis. And I've heard some stories about Wake Forest and stuff like that. So if you could start off just by giving us your background, that would be outstanding.
Well, I'm a Richmond guy, born and raised here in Richmond. Grew up near St. Mary, born near St. Mary's, and then we moved into Sleepy Hollow. I went to Mayberry, Bird, and Freeman for my school. Grew up at Westwood. My dad loved tennis. I never really got into it. I had an experience maybe about 10 or 12 years old. My dad wanted me to play, and I did something, and whoever this kid was I was playing against was throwing his racket, and I was like, it just turned me off. So tennis wasn't my thing growing up. I swam a little bit, but basketball was my main love growing up. And I did that probably up until my late 40s, and then I realized I couldn't cover 20-year-olds anymore.
Did you play at Freeman?
I played at Freeman, and then I was fortunate enough, I was a walk-on at Wake Forest. I played 1 year at Wake Forest. I didn't study too much. People should study. And so I spent 2 years there, and then I had spent a year working, and then I finished at Bridgewater College, and I played 3 years at Bridgewater basketball.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
nice.
And but I got into tennis from Rob Johnston. I don't know, he was the pro at Avalon, and for some reason, he caught me one night, and he said, hey, we got this beer and pretzel league, is what he called it. And he just had guys come out and play, and they'd sit around and socialize afterward. And I started playing there, and I started to enjoy it. And then I got into USTA mixed, and mixed is still probably my favorite tennis. I like playing mixed more than any. But that started to, USTA fueled my competitive need for tennis.
Yeah, nice.
There's a fun side and a competitive side, and USTA did give me that.
Did you ever get into singles, or you strictly doubles?
I played some singles, but not a lot. When I had to, when I was in better shape.
Yeah.
Definitely had played singles the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Yeah, that wears you out.
It's too hard.
Yeah. Difficult to recover from.
Correct.
For sure. So the basketball at Wake, were you there during any of the big games?
This is my my story that's not the truth. I was a freshman the same year with Ralph Sampson and James Worthy. So I like to say that I came in third in ACC Rookie of the Year voting. That's because Ralph and James got all the other votes, and there was nobody else for third. So I came in third. My daughter tells a really good story. She says, my daddy was a 20-20 man at Wake Forest. Sounds pretty good. You're thinking 20 points, 25th, whatever. really what it meant was if we were up by 20 or down by 20, I got in the game.
In the game.
But it was a good experience.
That's classic. That's classic. So 1 year there, and then Bridgewater, you were a guard, I'm assuming.
Yes, a little short to play inside.
Yeah. So how was that Bridgewater team?
Bridgewater was a lot like high school. It was easy going. I didn't really have to work as hard. It was an enjoyable time. We were competitive, but nothing great. It was a good school. I really enjoyed Bridgewater College. Nice. It was a good experience for me.
Nice. So then you end up in Richmond, and
when I finished school, I went to work for a company called Cal Gas, which was based out of Sacramento, California.
Okay.
I'd been in the propane business all my life. My dad was in the business, and I wanted to do something beside just work for him. And a great opportunity with Cal Gas. They took me in a management training program where I was in a plant. I was in their marketing department. I was in their supply department. And I was supposed to get into acquisitions, but at that time we sold. And so I was in Houston, Texas. They offered me a job. I said, no, thank you. I came back to Richmond. I had met the young lady that became my wife, Tracy. She was in California. I was going back to Virginia. So I said, well, this isn't very romantic, but I said, we either got to get married or it's not going to work out. And she was fortunate. She agreed to marry me. So nice. we got married in 88. I came back here in 87. So I've been back in Richmond since 87.
Nice. Always you said Westwood, you were.
So I grew up at Westwood. Yeah, my parents were members there. And then when we joined a club, Avalon was around the corner from where we live, and we joined for the pool and the other things. I've been in the pool maybe 10 times in my 25 years there. We joined so the kids could have a place to go swimming or whatever.
Sure, and you live right around
I still within 1 mile away now.
No, that's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, so we were talking originally a minute ago about the McCarty tournament. So you've known a lot of people that come and go, obviously, in one way or another. Unfortunate with Brian's situation, but that tournament is a hoot.
That tournament is a hoot. It's kind of stopped now, but it was a great, fun one-day tournament. Yeah, Carolyn called it the biggest one-day tournament on the East Coast. Yeah, whether it was or wasn't, we just claimed that. Yeah. And it was a good, fun day.
It was a blast.
Actually, my goal was to lose my 2 matches early so I could have fun.
You could have fun.
Correct.
Well, it ties so you guys host the Autumn Cup.
Correct.
Which we had JP LaForce on here previously, and we talked about that a little bit. And I think we might be able to do a live broadcast or recording of not only the Tallheimer Challenge, but the Autumn Cup as well. So I have to work that out. JP, I'm not trying to get ahead of you. Sorry. But yeah, I like that tournament too. I like that tournament too because it's a kind of a scaled down version of the Tallheimer Challenge, but as you said, a little more relaxed and a little more fun. I think
it's definitely a fun tournament. I think Rob Johnston again had a lot to do with that at the beginning. It was Avalon, Ridgetop, and Kanawha when it first started off, and it's grown. Are we 12 or 15? Somewhere between 12 and 15 years 12, now. Yeah. But it's grown into something really fun. It's down to a 2-day thing now. It used to be 3 days, but just a fun weekend, a good event, good sportsmanship. I think everybody has it. I think we realize it's more for fun. It's not really about who's the champ.
Yeah, although you don't
want to lose. There's no question, but I'd love to see Kanawha win one year. I feel bad that they never have. They're one of the originals, but but they're a good group of people.
So you guys, as you said, it's a pretty close-knit group at Avalon, although there's also some politics on occasion that get in the way. But so how do you see that? Is that neighborhood just lends itself well to the tennis teams that you guys?
I think Avalon has really grown a lot in tennis, especially over the past few years. Gabe Gita has really, once he's joined, he's really brought in a lot of new people. Dickie Bland, my good friend, when he joined, he has recruited some people. So we have a lot of people who are tennis-only people at Avalon. We have 2 style of memberships over there. One's called a social membership, which gets you into parties and tennis. Okay. And then there's the full pool and everything. But yes, it's amazing how the community's grown. we're kind of limited. I don't think we attract the upper 4.0s and 4.5s and whatnot because of, we don't have year-round facility.
Yep.
But our 2.5 to 3.5 program is huge. Lots of members, lots of players, lots of teams. Sometimes it's hard finding court time just because so many teams have matches.
That's a good thing because that gives you the future is bright relative to those people progressing. And then it's not easy to get to 4.0 and 4.5, so they won't be leaving anytime soon. But yeah, the fact that they start out and just grow within your system and your teams is a good thing.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned going to nationals a bunch of times and sectionals and all that stuff. How do you guys do it? How do you put those teams together that are so consistently good?
We've been lucky with good membership. It started years ago. I feel like we had teams and we always got to, I think the first thing was called regionals.
Yeah.
And we would get to regionals and we would go down there and just get beat, but we could get there every year. We could win the locals or whatever.
Yeah.
And one year I got with a fellow named Bill Stevens and we put together a group of team and we had the idea was to get to regionals and do well. Unfortunately, that team, another team he ran and another guy on the team, all three teams qualified. So we went down there with three separate teams and didn't do well.
Yep.
And so I decided I wasn't doing that again for a while because the whole purpose was to win. But in 2015, I got with a fellow named Frank Payne out of Westwood. And Frank brought a few guys from Westwood, and I got my Avalon guys, and we found a couple other. Michael Schaefer was the key to our success. I don't know if you know Michael or not.
Heard the name.
Michael was a 3.5 for 1 year. He was a 4.0 for 1 year, and he's been a 4.5 ever since.
Nice.
But that group of guys was especially close. Unfortunately, we drank a lot, but we played tennis pretty well, and we rolled into nationals. It was no question the whole time.
Nice. How did the nationals?
Nationals, I made a coaching error, I think.
Oh, gosh.
And
you don't have to admit that.
I got to admit it. I'm going to blame me. And we lost to a New Jersey team. One line lost in the third point tiebreak. Otherwise, we'd have won. One guy was injured and he didn't tell me, and I left him at singles, and I probably should have moved that out.
Oh,
so that's why I'm saying my coaching error.
Yeah,
I should have done it.
But
Again, we had a great time.
Yeah,
everybody knew we were there because we partied hard.
That was Arizona.
That was in Tucson.
Yeah,
Arizona.
Tucson.
Yeah, we had a great time.
Yeah, how do they do that? You play early in the morning and late at night, or what? I mean,
you play.
Hot as Hades, literally.
I get. They say it's a dry heat.
Not so much.
Now, what I'll say is when you're out there, you don't notice that you're sweating because it evaporates you off. Whereas here in our humidity, you're sweating and dying. And so you just got to keep hydrated. But no, you're playing just regular like we do here.
Yeah. That's insane.
But it's fun. But great team, great time, great memories. Brian McCarty, we talked about earlier, was on that team, and Jack Blanton, another fellow that's passed away, left us. So just good people, good times.
Yeah, it's not the first time Frank Payne's name has come up on this podcast. He is an infamous character.
Frank is very infamous.
Yeah, he's
become a good friend. You either like him or you don't like him. Usually that's with Frank, but I like him.
I can't find any way not to like the guy. He's just such a character. It's he's hilarious. I think I've already told the story about when my wife and I first met him on here, and I probably shouldn't go into it again. He might not be happy with me. But having said that, so let's switch gears a little bit. So are you an equipment nerd? Do you get into that kind of stuff as far as your racket and strings?
I am not. I had one of the guys off of one of my earlier teams used to string rackets, and I just did whatever he did.
Okay.
And then when he quit stringing, I asked him what he used, and I still use those strings for the most part today. I like a Babolat racket, and I really miss my original. I used to have 3 of them. And 2 of them have gone by the wayside from age and wear. I've not found one I like as much. Today in my bag, I keep 4 rackets now. I have my old Babolat, I have a Wilson, and I have a new Babolat, and then I have this brown bottle of Gatorade that I keep in there. It may not be real Gatorade, but people who know me know what's in there.
Yeah, we know what's in there.
I used to only have 2 rackets. I used to call that my 3rd racket, but now it's become my 4th racket now.
That's good. That's a good way to describe it, I think.
There you go. It's my 4th
We
racket.
could talk. I'll have you back, and we'll talk bourbon the next time because I have a soft spot as well. Yeah. So the rackets, you prefer the Babolat?
I do.
Just because the
weighting and the feel.
Yeah.
I think the weighting, though, something about it. When I'm playing against a strong player, the frame seems to hold up better to me. I don't know.
Yeah, the other day I started with my other Yonex the other day, and I ended up switching to this Babolat, and it changed the out. Well, you were there. We playing Jesse and Bill,
yeah.
and the Yonex in the first set wasn't doing anything right. Obviously, it's user error, but then when you switch and you get that different feeling, it makes all the difference. You're like, okay, more power, more stability, and that changed the whole match, I think, for me anyway.
It does. And I guess I did lie because all 3 rackets are strung different for me.
Okay.
So I will pick out the racket that the strings fit the opponent.
Strung with different strings or different
both
tension?
Different strings.
Yeah, nice.
The Babolat's got whatever I ordered in it.
Yeah.
My Wilson has what I usually use, and then my old Babolat has, I don't know what it is, but that's the ones I have to use that racket when I'm playing a power player because the other ones just feel like they're going to fly out of my hand.
Wow, that's interesting. Okay, so
I do
you are
use
a little bit more.
So maybe I'm a little more, but I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah. Okay.
Except different strings for different players.
That's interesting, and that's smart. You're using the technology to combat the competition that you're up against. So that's good. Very good. So here's a crazy question. Short of the bourbon, do you have like a pre-match meal or pre-match intake that you abide by and post-match?
Well,
again, leave the bourbon out.
Well, you're like me. You're probably playing enough tennis that it's not really so much pre-match meals. It's like, now you do, when I think ahead, I'll try to eat at 3 o'clock when we have a 6 o'clock match.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not going to eat till afterward, and then you come home, eat, and it's not good things to do.
Yeah.
But no specific food.
Just something that make sure you get it out and through the system and burn. Have the energy to burn, and then you come back afterward.
A lot of times you go empty, so it's whatever.
Yeah. How about stretching and exercise? Are you one of those advocates?
A stretcher. And I've been lucky with that, I guess, because as we age, I'm surprised I haven't had more injuries. But I don't really stretch before or after. I watch some of my teammates do it. And I'm like, well, that's good for you. Good for you. But for the most part, no.
I noticed the knee braces. You got
my knee. I had a meniscus tear a few years ago in my left knee, but it wasn't anything that required anything, so it healed on its own. And I wear the knee braces now because they keep them warm, and it just feels better when I'm playing.
Yeah, keep them loose.
And it makes them feel better afterward too.
Yeah,
a leave is a very important part of the regimen for after tennis.
Yes. So I try to alternate between Aleve and Tylenol so that I'm not killing one inner organ or the other. I forget how it works.
See, I don't know.
But I do that actually before a couple Aleve before a match, and then afterward I try to avoid that. Ice baths are my big recovery.
Ice is good. I used to ice them very much after, but they did ache. There were some years when they really, really ached, and I would ice them, and that is huge for helping. I lost some weight, but I put the weight back on, so I can't say that's helping anymore.
Well, I told you I've had a partial tear in my hamstring, so that's been this Friday will be 4 weeks. I did play Saturday morning, and I'm playing tonight, so I'm trying to space the matches out.
Okay.
But ice baths. I get in up to my waist in the tub with ice and just sit there for a few minutes. It's actually amazing the impact that it has. It's really
I'm sure it
helpful.
does. I remember in college putting my ankles in the ice buckets, and it was killer. But yes, it helps.
Afterward is the recovery is exceptional. But not a lot of people. Actually, Matt Curtis, I don't know if you know him, but I told him that story about the ice baths, and he went out and bought one of those portable inflatable ice things, and he uses it every day now.
Oh, wow.
He climbs in. I'm like, man, I didn't know you were going to go that far. But he took it seriously, and I think it's helping him.
It's helped your body. Good.
Yeah. So as far as your relationship with tennis, how would you describe, like if you had to talk to somebody for the first time and say, they ask you why get involved with tennis, how would you answer that question?
I think tennis is a good game. I think it, if you're an individualist, you can play singles and it's just you and another person, which is good. Coming from basketball, I think I've always preferred the doubles because I feel like it's a team effort. There's strategies involved. It's good time to be out there. It's enjoyable. I think one of the things I try to do, no matter who I'm playing, I want to beat you, but I want everybody to have fun. And I hope that somebody, when they play against me, feel that way. That's my biggest try. But it's an enjoyable sport. My daughters are 31 and 34, and a year ago they wanted to start playing. So
that's outstanding.
We go out, and it's comical. We've gotten to where we can all do some volleying and stuff. So we're having a good time. It's something you could do with anybody in your family, no matter what the levels. You watch dads with little kids out there, So it's a good family-oriented sport.
Yeah, we have, we're doing, so internally at ACAC, we do a challenge for the Tallheimer Challenge, right? So Kyle Moore and Randy Moore, I know Randy Moore and I played you and Dickie a couple years ago, but he and his son, Randy and Kyle, are challenging. And I think they've made it to the second step, so they're right now, I have to check in with them, but they're progressing through that. So that's interesting. As you said, it's a great thing to see, a father and son participating that way in a sport, and hopefully be able to, show off their stuff at the Tallheimer Challenge in September or whenever that, I think it's September.
Yes, like you said last week.
Yeah, late September. Well, Brad, again, I appreciate it. We'll have you back. I just thought about telling the story about the tennis beer pong, or bourbon pong, but I'm going to hold off. We'll talk about that, for another episode. But I appreciate you coming down today. Thanks for your time. And
if for some reason you ever have Frank Payne on, ask him about the infamous racket toss.
Is that the racket they framed it and put it up in the bar?
Oh, I have no idea. They may have.
I think they did. I'll ask him. He is on the guest list.
I thought he should be. Yeah,
I need to get him on here.
The infamous racket toss. He was playing against Dickie Bland and I.
Oh man. Okay. That sounds like a great story. Okay. I'll have to. We'll get Frank on here for sure.
Good.
All right. Thank you again. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Take care.